Belantis is an interesting theme park in East Germany. Owned by Parques Reunidos, Belantis is so close to being a very good park. It has some cool headlining attractions, but no depth. Then 3/4 of the park is well themed, but the other quarter left me scratching my head. But is Belantis ultimately worth visiting? Find out in this park review. Belantis is a relative infant in the amusement industry. This theme park originally opened in 2003 in a former industrial area. Most of Germany's theme parks are in the western half of the country, so it was a strategic location. The largest park in eastern Germany along with Belantis is Freizeitpark Plan, and the two parks are just over an hour apart. From day one, Belantis placed a strong emphasis on theming. The park knew how to make a strong first impression, with a grand castle entrance. Then the park had several themed lands built around a gorgeous central lagoon. You had the Egyptian-themed area with Fluch des Pharaoh's stunning pyramid. You had Insel der Ritter, or Knight's Island, with Drachenritt and the medieval castle. And the park looked to have a bright future. The park's biggest flaw in its opening year was the lack of attractions, and Belantis slowly addressed this issue over the next decade, with arguably their flashiest addition being the infamous Gerstlauer Eurofighter known as Huracan. Then in 2018, Belantis was purchased by Parques Reunidos, making it the 17th amusement park worldwide in the Spanish company's portfolio. But the park has not added any new attractions ever since. The only investment was a partial retracking of Huracan before the 2019 season, and many still consider this ride to be one of the roughest steel coasters in the world. As I mentioned earlier, most of Belantis looks grand. Most lands have an iconic ride or thematic structure that catches your eye. But if you look closer, you'll start to notice some oddities in the theming. Not all the pathways are paved. This aesthetic works for some parks, but it contrasted mightily with the grandness of the rest of the park, and it felt random in some cases. Take Drachenritt's queue line for example, where you have 4 different materials: asphalt at the start, dirt during the switchbacks, wood during a bridge, and cobblestone leading up to the station. Drachenritt's queue line really feels like an adventure, and it's one of several odd queue lines at this park. Huracan had multiple bird nests in the station positioned above the queue line, so guests had to watch out for bird poop that would rain down every few minutes. Then Cobra des Amon-Ra and Fluch des Pharaoh both had detailed indoor queue lines, yet guests don't actually wait inside them. And this wasn't just a COVID-related policy. The park did this before 2020 as well. Fluch des Pharaoh has a short outdoor queue line that leads to a turnstile. Every so often a small group of riders are admitted into the pyramid, where you navigate what feels like a haunted labyrinth at the base of the pyramid. You have a series of windy and convoluted pathways paired with creepy droning music. Then you have some detailed hieroglyphics to look at towards the end of it. But then you emerge into the daylight and have a series of minimally shaded switchbacks in a courtyard. Cobra des Amon-Ra has a similar situation. You have a series of minimally shaded switchbacks outdoors, and then before every cycle, the exact number of people needed to fill a train is admitted into the elaborately well-themed queue line with hieroglyphics, statues, and lighting effects. And you don't really have any time to admire this detail because the next train is waiting for you. I really wish Belantis would have people queue in the interior of both these rides so you can actually appreciate all that theming and also escape the conditions outside. Belantis also feels unfinished in areas. In between the themed lands, you have these lengthy walks with no rides, attractions, shops, or food stands. Worse, some of these areas also had overgrown grass and it looked like construction sites without any construction taking place, if that makes sense. That's how unfinished they looked. And then take some of the queue lines where you only have snippets of shade structures that look like they were added as afterthoughts. Or worse, Drachenritt's queue line where you have temporary fencing in that unpaved section of the queue line. All of these things really stand out because the rest of Belantis really looks great. The final missed opportunity is in the music department. Many themed lands are paired with custom soundtracks at other parks, or at the very least, music that fits the area. Other parks just play random pop music. and I almost would have preferred that to what Belantis did. Belantis played a lot of Disney music in the park. That in itself is fine, but the song choices for each land was downright atrocious. For the Egyptian-themed area, what would you expect to hear? Aladdin would make sense. Nope, that was being played in the medieval section. Instead, the Egyptian section was playing the Little Mermaid soundtrack on loop. Just listen. In the Mexico area, I heard Hercules. Again, that really irked me because they have a Greek-themed land on the opposite side of the park where that music would have worked. And then for icing on the cake, the Midway was playing It's a Small World throughout the day. Smarter music really would have elevated the overall feel of these lands. Instead, I was laughing at the absurdity of the music choices. Operations at this park are spotty. Huracan was only running 2 vehicles, each seating 6 passengers. That alone would have been less than ideal, but the issue was compounded by a tediously slow loading procedure. Guests need to remove all items from their pockets and accessories, including glasses, even if you had a strap. This was a policy seen on Fluch, their Gerstlauer Sky Roller as well. Oncoming guests to Huracan need to put these items on bins on the opposite side of the load platform, but they cannot start the process until the prior train load of guests completely exited the station. This caused Huracan to stack repeatedly, giving the coaster a 45 to 60 minute wait on a weekday. Fluch des Pharao had way more rafts than necessary, which caused a backup of almost 4 minutes each ride. The ride had a continuous load platform, but it was stopped for each raft. This removed the sense of urgency for boarding guests. Then, after the operator performs the restraint check, they have to instruct guests one by one that they need to hold on during the splashdowns. Other rides like Drachenritt and Cobra were dispatching vehicles more quickly. Most rides were walk-ons. Huracan had the worst wait by far, so I would advise hitting that coaster first. Drachenritt, Cobra, and the water rides were the only other waits, clocking in around 15 to 20 minutes. Moving on to the ride lineup, Belantis has 4 roller coasters. Huracan is the one that catches your eye when you arrive at the park. This red Gerstlauer Eurofighter is strongly rumored to have come from the cancelled F1 theme park in Dubai, and that may explain the ride's shakiness. However, I got an enjoyable ride in the front row. The vehicles definitely had a shimmy throughout the ride, but it didn't cause any headbanging. That allowed me to appreciate one of the stronger layouts on a Eurofighter. The first drop had a good pop of airtime, the 0G roll was extremely snappy, the middle had some surprise pops of airtime, and the final 2 interlocking corkscrews had some hang time. I heard from others who rode Huracan as well in 2021, in the back row, that was awful back there. So I would advise waiting however much longer necessary for the front, so you can hopefully get an enjoyable ride experience like me. I have a separate review going into more detail, but this was a pleasant surprise for me. Drachenritt is a Gerstlauer bobsled, which is basically a souped-up wild mouse coaster. The ride has a decently steep first drop, some fun hairpin turns above the castle with fine laterals, some forceful helixes, and a series of bunny hills with a little airtime. Drachenritt is a strong family coaster with something for everyone, and I go into more detail in a separate review. Cobra des Amun-Ra is a Gerstlauer family coaster. I touched on its amazing queue line earlier in this review, and it really does feel like a walkthrough attraction with all the detail. And the coaster itself is a decent family coaster as well. My back row ride had some mild whip on the first 4 drops, and some light positive Gs on the final helix. Then you also have Huracanito, a Gerstlauer kiddie raiser that is off limits to adults. On that note, I do like how Belantis scatters attractions for all ages throughout the park. It means families can explore the park together. The adult flat ride lineup is not super deep. You have a few pendulum rides, and barely any spinning rides, but there are 2 notable flats. First is a Höchst Condor and Drachenflug that is a relatively rare ride type nowadays, and that really is a shame because these rides feel like scramblers with neat views. Second, there's Gotterflug, which is a fantastic Gerstlauer sky roller. These rides can sometimes be difficult to flip if you do not have the proper technique. but this one was ridiculously easy to invert. That can be attributed to this ride's placement atop a hill. Semi-frequent wind gusts would give riders the push they needed to invert, and you'd perform barrel rolls at ludicrous speeds. I absolutely loved it. I performed almost 60 flips on my ride. Moving on to the water rides, you have a slow boat ride on the lagoon and a wet-dry water slide, but the highlight is obviously Fluch Fharao. This is the best ride in the entire park. This one-of-a-kind Hafima water ride takes the best elements of water slides, river rapids rides, and log flumes, combining them into one. You ride in these dinghy rafts that bounce and bob like an actual whitewater rapids trip. You have a far better drop than most flumes, as it's a sizable big drop that gives those in the back a pop of airtime before the raft seems to unnaturally hydroplane the rest of the way down. Then you have a whirlpool section, which is Hafima's signature on their rapids rides. And then you also have a section in that massive pyramid. There was not as much theming as I expected during the ride itself, but the ride system was so unique and entertaining that it masked these issues. I have a separate review going into more detail, but this is the most attractive reason to visit Belantis. You cannot experience this ride anywhere else. Belantis does not have any dark rides. The closest you get is the dark ride section on Fluch Fharao and some of the detailed indoor queue lines. Due to limited time, I did not grab any meals, but the park just didn't seem to have as much food stands as I would have expected for a park of this scale. You have 4 food restaurants and stands in the Indian themed area, and then 1 or less food places in all other sections. So is Belantis worth visiting? I think the West German parks run circles around Belantis, but if you find yourself in East Germany, the park is worth visiting for a few hours. For the most part, the theming looks great. This is a grand and visually stunning park in most areas. There are the parts that make me scratch my head combined with some weird operations, but ultimately I did enjoy myself. I don't think there are enough attractions to fill a full day, but Fluch Fharao is an awesome attraction you need to experience, and the coaster lineup was fun as well. I'm hoping Parques Reunidos can unlock the full potential of this park in the future because it has a lot going for it, but their lack of investment thus far has me a little worried. So those are my thoughts on Belantis, the interesting theme park in East Germany. What are your thoughts on this park? Have you been there? I would love to hear what you think about this place down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.